Hi. Hi, everyone. Let's get started. Lovely to have you all here. For those of you that haven't met me, my name is Owen. I'm one of the technical coaches and a pod lead here at Makers. I know, say maybe half of this room by now, but yeah, it's really lovely to have you here. Thanks for coming along to this gorgeous on-site demo day. Some housekeeping to get out of the way first. So maybe 2 or 3 things. If you're looking for the toilets, you can just find them outside of this room through that hallway, so right next to this room. If there's a fire alarm, it's not a drill, so please do drop your things and leave. We have a couple of different fire exits. So there's one here. So if you're in this room, just push those doors open, go down the stairs. If you meet in the very front of the building on Scrutton Street, somebody from staff will come and take your name and make sure everyone's accounted for. If you're in this room, it's the door you came in. So basically, closest door, leave your things, go, that's it. We have a photographer here tonight. Which is great, lovely to have you. If you prefer not to be in photos, that's absolutely fine. You can let our photographer know, or Haley, and just let them know you'd rather not. It's absolutely fine. And that's it. So we're here tonight for our amazing April cohort. This is their demo day. They're going to be showcasing 5 different engineering projects that they've been working on just since Monday last week. So last Monday, they started with an ideation session when they came together with the cohort to start brainstorming ideas and really wanting to think a bit about what do we want to do over this next 2 weeks, purely from scratch, putting everything we've done in 16 weeks together. So 5 amazing teams. First, a little bit of context on the journey that kind of got them to this point. So most of you probably know by now, Makers is an intensive boot camp that lasts 16 weeks. These devs joined 16 weeks ago. They started undertaking challenges first around the command line, using version control, and then they moved towards topics like object-oriented design, test-driven development, testing with ORSpec, things like that. After just a couple of weeks, they were building full-stack web apps, and a short while after that, picking up brand new languages and frameworks entirely on their own accord. So they've worked through agile projects, they've submitted tickets for peer code review, they've worked through merge conflicts and operated in sprints. So all of that came to life for them in the projects that you will see this evening. One of the key things I see Makers developers do over the course of these 16 weeks are get more and more confident that given the time, they can build anything that they set out to build. And we definitely see that tonight with these projects, and you'll see the same. So they came together out of a common choice of theme. That's what formed their teams of around 4 to 7 developers each. And they've had absolute ownership over these projects. So from creating the very idea that they're going to work on, they've decided the list of features, they decided what minimum viable product they would set out to build first, how they'll work together, what tech stack they'll need, and they've absolutely excelled at it. They've really done such an amazing job. I didn't have the blessing of working with them for these projects, but getting to see what they've built in such a short space of time, I've been really blown away. They have tons to be so proud of, so I'm really excited for you all to get to see these tonight as well. It's really amazing. So I won't take up more of your time now. We can move to the main showcase. What I'll do this evening, I'll introduce each team one by one to come up, present their project, tell you a little bit about how it came together, and then I'll ask you, the audience, for 2 questions for each team. So have a think if there's anything you'd like to know more about their journey, their process in building these amazing projects. Do ask. Challenges, successes, whatever comes to mind. And that's it. So first up, please give a warm welcome to Team Flock.
Thank you for that intro, Owen, and thank you to all of you who have come to see our final project. It means a lot to us. We are Team Flock, like the picture of the sheep with the bird on top behind us. We're kind of like a flock of sheep or a flock of birds. Now our goal is to create an app that can take away all the hassle that basically making group decisions does. Instead of putting it in a group chat and waiting for people to reply and going back and forth, instead you just send them a link, they go through it in a nice easy swiping process so they don't have to make a lot of decisions, and what you get back is a nice simple result of what it is the group wants to do. So that's what we're going to do, and to display that to you, we've got Evan and Verity. I hope you enjoy it.
I'm going to take us through the first part of this demo. And so in this demo, we've got two example users, and the person on the left is the first user. So you open up the app and you are on your create your event page. And on this page, you decide on the title of the event you're creating, where the event is going to take place, the city, and then the names of the people that you'd like to join you on this event. So in this case, there's 2 people, but you can add more people if you'd like. And once you've decided on who's going to be coming, you generate a link, and this link lets you then copy it and share it with the other people that will be joining you on the activity. And then we go to choose activities. So first say who you are. So I'm Verity. And then these are the activities that have been generated based on the city that I put in earlier. And so you can swipe left for no, and you can swipe right for yes. And you can see there are also 2 buttons on the bottom, so you can use those 2 if those feel more intuitive to you. And you can go a bit faster once you get used to it. And then we're on the results that are waiting for the next person to choose.
All right, so the other user is going to click the link and it's going to take them through to the app, and they'll land on the event page that they've been added to. They'll select their name from the drop-down menu, and it will take them through to the same set of activities as the previous user had been swiping through before. These are actually generated using ChatGPT and Google based on the location that was initially input. And this shows them now the results. These are the ones, the activities that matched with the previous user's activities that they'd swiped right on as well. And if the other user now can click refresh, and it will then show them the same results. They can also go on the tab at the bottom for past events, and it will show them all the past events that they've either created or been added to, and the results for that as well. So now I'm going to hand it over to Matt and Sarah to show us some behind the scenes.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we work together as a group. So on the first afternoon, we got together and discussed our ideas for the project and what we wanted to create. We wanted to use React Native to create a mobile app with a Tinder-like swiping functionality. This was a brand new concept and framework for us, so we set ourselves a task on the first couple of evenings to go home and do some basic research on what React Native is and how to start using it. We also created a team charter and spoke about our expectations. For this project, we were all really keen to build something that looked good and that we would be proud to show off to a prospective employer. We also wanted to work within a clear agile structure, so we had a daily stand-up every morning to discuss progress and any blockers. We also had defined sprints with sprint planning sessions and sprint retros. There were 5 in the group, so we typically divided work up into 2 pairs, with one person working solo each day. We also used Trello to create our tickets, detailing what needed to be done and by who, and organise our work. Over to Matt to talk a little bit about our version 1.
So this is version 1, and as you can see, we chose to keep things very simple. The reason we kind of chose to do that, we were conscious of there being quite a few things that needed to be ironed out. As Sarah mentioned previously, we were working in React Native, which is something that neither of us on the team had worked in before. There was some swiping functionality that we knew we kind of wanted in the final stages, but we weren't sure how that would kind of work. And we also weren't sure as well how we were going to test everything now that we were using React Native. So there was a lot of kind of learning at this stage. And so as we move towards this version, we focused exactly on that, on learning and then building something really simple from what we had learned. But we reached our deadline on time and with relative ease for the MVP. So this just emphasised the fact that we were ready to move forward, increase the complexity, and then kind of work towards the features that we really did want to show in the final piece.
Okay, thanks, Matt. So the key to our idea was to have no user login, because we felt that having to sign up is quite a cumbersome process when using an app. But we also wanted to be able to use our app with friends on multiple phones. So after the MVP, we went into a big planning session, and this was where this big ugly diagram was born. I think this really was the key to our success. It was important to understand early on how our idea was going to
come together. So kind of understand how this would work with the kind of back-end stack that we knew and with the front end that we didn't know so well with React Native. And so it's important that we just had everyone on the same page.
So yeah, as you guys can see, there was like a real like chasm between like what we ended up making and that previous version 1 that like you guys laughed at. But we got to that MVP super quick, and then we came in the morning after that first sprint, and Sarah just had this what I call the Zuckerberg moment. I don't know if you guys see it. I'm assuming you've all seen the social network where he's like doing his little like on the window, and she just started going ham on the whiteboard and did this. And actually, like while you were saying that it's a bad diagram, we were going to clean this up, but we were just like, it was so clear, like it just put everything into perspective, and it was actually like a pivotal moment because we all used that as a constant reference point, just like to know where we were at, to know what needed to be done. And then because of that, we were all just, when we were separating things out and tasks out, we all just knew exactly what we needed to do, and we got it done, and it allowed us to actually seamlessly mix our code together without any issues at all, which was pretty huge. And yeah, thanks, Mark.
Yeah, so as you can see, there was a lot of implementation, a lot to talk about. But I just want to see the progression here. We're starting off with this, which is literally just text, to some chunky, this is my first project type thing, into an app that actually looks like it's being used. And that's all thanks to actually us coming together, having great communication, and actually styling. So we looked at the colors here. We were like, we're going to use these colors, and we were able to mix it quite easily. And obviously, the sheet. Yeah, everyone's going to remember that. We've got our logo coming together. I just want to say, I was really blessed with a very lucky team, and we worked together. People put in work after hours. Thank you so much to them, you guys, and Evan over there. And thank you again, yeah, for coming. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Team Flock. So are there any questions for this wonderful team from the audience? Yes, Haley.
If you were going to keep building out, kind of do that.
Yeah, well, we actually, that diagram was this idea of let's just keep building and keep implementing it to a point where if we were going to create a product that we would sell, what would it look like? And we sort of thought, it's one thing to help people coordinate on activities, but the real crux of the issue is on dates. Because everyone's like, oh, I can do this weekend, but I can't do this weekend. I can do this day, but I can't do the evening. I can do the morning. I think that would be like a major implementation of that. But having only had 8 days, I think we'd probably just better to sit back, make it look good, make you guys go, yeah, and just sit back on that.
Probably also kind of have at the end have it select out of the matches,
yes,
as well. So it'll give you kind of a default choice, so that there isn't kind of the umming and ahhing about which one of the matches you would take.
Yeah, I think as well some context would be good. This app actually came from an idea from someone in the audience that was like a Tinder-based app for picking Netflix films so that couples didn't have to sit there and be like, should we watch this film or that film or this film or that film? You just choose, and then it'd be like, give you your first match, so there's no decision making. Basically taking the power away from the person in a very AI is going to take the world kind of way. Yeah, we're just helping that process.
Also, as well, I just wanted to mention, like, obviously, because of the time restrictions, like, a lot was stripped down, but, like, there was, at the beginning, when it was this big idea that we were just, like, kind of playing around with, there was, like, this machine learning buzzword that was going around, which personally kind of scared me. But, like, but basically, like, there was, like, this, like, again, because we wanted to, like, we didn't want people to have to sign up and log in, but realistically, like, the activities could be tailored more to, like, knowing what the user actually would like to do before they even get the 5 activities. Like, you could know, well, we've got an idea of what this person does, like, to just narrow it down even further, because the whole point is to, like, to make sure that, like, you're at the end of it, you are getting some form of match on, like, an activity.
I have a question about so the first iteration that you showed that people laughed at, and just to come back to it, because I think it's one of the things that you did so amazingly well. Some of the challenges I see come up in this project are probably most frequently trying to whittle something down to the smallest core idea just to make a start with. Did you find that process difficult when you had the ideation session, brainstorming where we could build? Did you find it difficult to whittle it down to such a core idea to make a start with?
No.
Yeah,
It's interesting because I've never worked with anyone in my group before. And I've paired with Matt once, but other than that, I've never actually worked with them. But we all just came together. It just came really easily. Yeah, it was nice.
And also because we were using React Native and we never used that before, we were so clear that we want to make this as simple as possible. So we were really focusing on kind of getting to grips before we planning. So keeping it. So we were all really, it was really good communication, like Marco said earlier. So we were always on the same page. So we were really sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Team Flock. Next up, we have It's Raining Mern. Whenever you're ready. Really iconic team names tonight.
Yeah. Hi everybody, we are team It's Raining Mern. Hallelujah. We are Caroline, Farida, Ha, Louis, Will, that's me, and Anne, who unfortunately can't be with us today. However, she is not only here in spirit, but in fact, I'm going to attempt to hand over to her now to introduce our product, which is called Whatever the Weather.
When you are traveling, constantly checking the weather forecast and planning your journey accordingly can become a real drag. Whatever the weather solves this for you is a single-page web activity recommendations for each of your trip based on a live daily weather forecast. Don't spend half of your holiday arguing about what to do and when to do it. Come together and get angry at this app instead then.
Thanks, Anne. Excellent. I'll now hand over to Caroline.
So the journey begins. Our group came together under the umbrella of ideas for recommendation type apps. And the idea for a holiday weather app was one that we all quickly agreed on. We then went through a number of steps which set us up well for the remainder of the project. We created a team charter where we set out our working practices, our team goals, our personal goals, and our team values. We set about defining product, we created user stories, and we outlined a minimum viable product. And then we split into initial teams, and we split the responsibilities of the initial research of the project and the initial setup of the project.
So, thanks, Caroline. So this diagram allows us to spread our ideas, so we communicate to diagram this, and it's also like make sure everyone in our team have the same understanding. This is our flow diagram. And then we are using React for the front end, Express for the back end, and special that we using like OpenX weather to handle the request for the weather data. So whenever we receive the response from weather data, we also like combine with our function in the backend. So this one will like recommend activity for the user based on the weather, then return back to the browser, for example, like for our website. And so we also like translated our user story that we wrote in the first day into design. So we expect that our design app will be here. So it's quite like visualize our imagination, and we also see that the user journey, their interaction, and also like improve our like user experience. After we do some diagram and design, we kind of like planning for our sprint, and also create our tickets on Trello. And after all of this, we kind of lucky we finished our MVP by Thursday last week. And now, Louis.
Thanks. So I'll just talk about some of the key learning takeaways that we gained from this project. So the first thing was that the bulk of the app was based on an external API, which is where we were going to get all of the weather data from, which Ha had mentioned. And so the research for that was done really well by Ha and Will, and they kind of had to hone in on some different APIs to get the weather, and then listed some pros and cons with loads of those. So one was AccuWeather and the other one was Open Weather API. And then they were really good at showcasing that to the rest of the group. And then we were able to come to like a very informed decision based on the needs of our product. And so that was really good to like a good research habit to get into before we even started the project. The second is just building a deeper understanding of React, because we had used that before. It's for the front end. It's a JavaScript framework, but the project we'd done before had a template already there for us. So we were just building upon the already established code base. But then we had to do one from scratch this time. So that was a really helpful process for all of us to just know how it's done from the get-go, really. And then the last thing is less technical, where it's just more about the boundaries that we put in place for the group project. So there was one time when it's a bit maybe more on my side, but I got a bit carried away with Farida to try and work on part of the algorithm. And we said, oh, we will just do this for half an hour more and no more than that, because we need to get moving on. But I was like, oh, you know, half an hour's up, you can go and pair now, and I'll just finish this off, you know, on lunch or something. And then 2 hours later, I'm still trying to work on it. Like they're expecting something to be submitted and I haven't done it. So then being really open with the team about that and saying, you know, I think I feel like I've let people down here. I haven't really produced much in all this time. That actually really helped, because they just reminded me, like, you know, it's a complicated thing. We've done enough for now, and that's good enough to move on to the project for the rest of the project. And it can just be an action point to take forward. It can be something that we can improve upon if we get the time at a later date. So yeah, I'll hand over to Will to talk about some of the difficulties. Thank you. I'll talk about some of the challenges we faced and how we overcame them. So the first one is, it's not just a challenge, but welcoming a team member in the middle of week one. We had Farida join us around about Wednesday, I think. And whilst it was lovely to have her on board, that presented some kind of like challenges to our workflow and things we needed to adapt and to accommodate. So what things that helped with that were having really thorough project documentation that allowed Farida to get up to speed quickly with where we were at and what our mutual expectations were of the project. Really staying on top of a combination of asynchronous communication via Slack and synchronous communication via Zoom to really hone in like on conveying the important developments as they occurred, and just generally fostering a spirit of being open to questions and supporting one another's learning. Kind of linked into this, but also with other people's commitments, was the need to balance the workload across different schedules. So between Farida had quite a different working schedule from most of us. We also had kind of school pickups. We had multiple hospital appointments, lots of stuff going on. And I think we mainly overcame this by staying agile. We took a very like flexible approach to managing ourselves and to adapting the work to the situation. For example, shifting retros around and extending sprints as needed. Making sure that there was a good diversity of tickets always on the board. So there was always something, at least like several things really that could be done solo and not just like boring tasks, and being ready to rewrite or to adapt tickets as people's situations evolved or as the work to be done changed. And lastly, we encountered some kind of miscommunications and misunderstandings about our working practices, and some of that was arising from our team's diversity in terms of culture and language, and we tried to use this as an asset to prompt us to learn and grow. We had to learn best how to communicate with each other and kind of to promote our emotional understanding of each other. And also as part of that, again, it was very necessary to have kind of like clear, structured, detailed tickets so that everyone can easily understand what we're working towards, but also trust that we have a good mutual understanding that we're working towards. Thank you. Now I'll hand over to Frida, who will take you through our tech demo.
Yes, so the tech demo. This is our wonderful website, whatever the weather, and it doubles as the personalized itinerary for your trip. And we have select your city, and we also have a range of activities here for you to choose from, and also a date range. So we're going to go ahead and choose Mykonos, Greece as our first location. Click generate. We see a list of activities that we've recommended and default recommendations for the days. And you can see here that our algorithm actually works by recommending the best activity, which is the outdoor activities, to the best day with hot temperatures, and our information is in columns, so we have the day, the temperature, and our key weather icon, our activity, and trip description. And now when I generate interactions, that's actually replaced, even though we actually preferentially at outdoor activities. And we see shopping there, and what's actually recommended. Now we're going to show that we can actually choose 8 days instead of 4 activity, but I'm going to go ahead and choose 6 and also change the location to Brighton, which I know is going to be raining. And I'm going to choose beach just to show that the preference actually has a caveat to it. So now we can see here, we can go to the best shopping. But alas, no beach, the range of Brighton. And yeah, so that's the message here. If we can't accommodate it, we'll still let you know that we accept your preference. And now we just put something else in and want to acknowledge themselves. So you can bring up showing how invalid emails don't actually work. So here there you go. And if I actually put my email here, it's there is 6 itineraries, and now I'm just showing how these work. If the server is down, and actually get a response. There you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And we have some words of wisdom from Anne, if you care to. Thank you. Any questions? Sure. Thank you. Sorry, I think the person in the hood was.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the activities. Is that sort of like a list tagged with like beaches and sunny days?
Yeah. So we kind of early on generated a briefer list of kind of like what we thought were kind of 6 in the MVP, was that right? Yeah, 6 activities that we thought were kind of had a good coverage of holiday-ness to them. And we built our recommendation algorithm to kind of like match those to favorable weather conditions. Yeah, as you've seen, kind of matching outdoors for warmer and clearer, and vice versa.
So we get a unique code of the weather type from the Open Weather API, and it's a numbered code. So then we'd be able to put that into our algorithm and give each activity an optimum weather condition with those codes.
Yeah, we see in here, like if the sunny day, you can have recommendation for outside activity. For example, like you can like go to the beach or hiking or sightseeing. If it's rainy day, you can like go dining, do something like in theater or like museum. This is our recommendation.
Yeah, and the caveat with that is even though it's a clear, bright day, maybe you went too quickly in video, like if you do choose an indoor activity, because you've chosen that, it will alter the weighted preferences that are the default setting and will actually still recommend you an indoor activity on a sunny clear day.
There's a question. No.
Okay, no, sorry,
No
question. Just answer.
Yes.
I have no clue about, I don't understand you, so I just want you to go over what I'm saying.
Sure. You know, really put me on the spot. So we're encouraged to work in an agile way. So it's using a way of organizing your workflows in ways that stay flexible and adapt to the needs of the product and the team as you go, rather than kind of taking we're going to build all of this and you work through it in a list of each of these things. So you're kind of like iterating through versions of the product as you build. So tickets are the kind of unit of work. So each of those describes, okay, we need to at least have a front-end interface to do that. We need the back end to do certain things. So it's a way of breaking up the work. It does do certain things. Yeah. Yeah, a digital post-it that says this work needs doing, and you say, I will do this work, and you move it along.
If you search Trello, see what Trello does, basically. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was also, I think, a gorgeous breakdown of agile methodology. Like stellar. Well done. Okay. Fab. So next up, we have the very shortly named Tetris Warrior Gaming Units Universe Heroes. I will leave also as a two-sheet.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hand it over to you.
You're handing over to me, yes.
Okay.
You can also just stand on the side so I don't have to crowd all 7 of us up here. Yeah, because you'll only be needed for the Q&A, so you have to sort of stand behind me. So not kicking you out, but at the same time, it feels weird to be huddled up. So,
Okay. All right. Hi there, everyone. A few weeks ago, I had the idea for a little game, one that involved little pieces of different shapes, falling down on a grid and connecting up lines. Although, turns out that game was already made 37 years ago. But it's all seriousness. We bring you not just Tetris, Battle Tetris. It's a project that had fun at the forefront, and that's in the playing of it and in the making of it. So might as well move on to the process.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you. So before we show off the game, some of you already got a chance to see it and mess around with it earlier on. But before we really show and talk about the game itself, we should probably talk a little bit about us as a group. Be a group of 7 people that don't have much experience working together and also have no experience ever making a game. We sort of went into this project not knowing what it's going to be. It's a very open-ended thing. We want Tetris that two people can play at the same time. And we could have just started out there, had an ideation session, have it last 2 weeks, and then just sit here going, all we have to show you is a 200-page essay of what we wanted to implement. What we realize we can do is sort of focus on, instead of focusing on the project we want to build, trying to focus on what we want to get out of it instead. So we sat down, we pulled up the document that we all had edits, and we openly said what every single one of us wants to gain from the project itself. We put this on a not entirely legally binding contract, but a contract nonetheless, and out in the open for everybody to see, to give us also a little bit extra pressure to actually achieve these goals. And we had one key value. We need to learn, and we want to learn, and we want to focus on learning rather than just getting something done. And for that purpose, we decided that we're going to use the most basic tools we can just vanilla JavaScript, a little bit of HTML, a little bit of CSS. Without the use of a single external library for any game making or any helpers, we're going to build this from scratch. And that was very daunting. That was probably not the best thing to sort of decide on day one. But at the same time, just having something like that, just going, cool, we've got an empty canvas. We don't know what to do with this. We need a little bit of extra structure. So we broke down the entire project into like these sprints, into just these chunks of what needs to be done. And that helped us prioritize our early processes of, cool, let's make sure that at the end of these 2 weeks, we have something. Whatever it is, we didn't know. We had no idea what it could be, but we chose not to talk about late game features until we actually have something to do with. So we literally just started day one. Yeah, that was it. That was essentially it for these places didn't even move for the first 2 days. But yeah, we just started drawing things. We just started drawing diagrams, just going, cool, what do we want? Where do we want it? How do we want it? Break down this massive, overwhelming project. Just a couple of simple ideas. And eventually, and we agreed that the first thing we want, well, we just want a grid, we just want an engine, we want something to play with, we want a canvas to paint on in the first place. And this is just a static piece that was drawn on a grid that doesn't look particularly exciting. And that already took us a couple of days. And that was our first iteration. It didn't do anything, but at least it allowed us, it did absolutely nothing. It just stayed there. But at the same time, that again gave us the option of going, cool, we know how everything else, we know what the engine, what the core game engine is. So we want to make it do things. So we just made regular Tetris. We just make these pieces fall down, just slowly get redrawn and then stack on top of one another. And that was great. Like there was a little bit of extra core functionality. At that point, we still didn't consider, there you go, sorry, I swear I didn't touch anything. At this point, we didn't even consider doing anything, any like features, anything from the like versus Tetris, like adding the extra level of tension. That all came in out of nowhere, really just snuck up on us. We just sort of started messing around, we just had Tetris pieces moving up and down. And then suddenly we actually had a playable demo of Tetris on a couple of days where pieces were moving up and down. This was still just a regular game of pieces going, lines disappearing and nothing else particularly interesting happening. And this will eventually evolve into what you'll be able to see in the tech demo later on. And on that piece, I'll pass you on to Cameron to talk to you a little bit about our experience with the game and experience with the game, rather than show you the game at this point. I'll keep your attention a little bit longer.
Thank you very much. So we were a big group. There were 7 of us in total, which meant there were lots of different ideas being thrown around. But our core game, as mentioned earlier, was that we wanted to have fun making something while coming up with something that was also really fun to play. Also, a lot of us in the group, having chosen to make a game, we of course play maybe a bit too many games in our free time. And it was pretty amazing for me personally, and I think a lot of other members of the group, to have an experience of, instead of playing a game, making something from nothing. As Michael said before, we didn't use any external libraries. It was all just pure JavaScript, which was in hindsight painful. And messing around with lots and lots of ones and zeros, maybe too many at some points, which takes us on to some challenges we faced, which of course were many bugs along the way. It was also quite hard to estimate how we would actually go about doing the work, considering none of us had made a game before. So it was hard to even think of where to begin. We also wanted to make sure, because we did have a big group, that everyone's ideas were heard and considered when coming up with a final product. There was also time constraints, considering we had, I think we started coding last Wednesday, wrapped things up yesterday, maybe some stuff this morning. And yeah, maybe a tiny bit. But despite all these challenges and problems we faced along the way, I think we can all quite easily say that coming from print hello world on the first day and then coming to something we're all incredibly proud of, and something that we all have actually found really fun to play as well. It's been pretty amazing. And now we've got a nice demo video, so I'll hand it back over to Cameron.
We didn't quite manage to get it embedded on the presentation, but
it's the video game one.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. Okay, let's see if we can get the audio working. We do have music with this game. It is a proper game. Screen, yes. It's not as impressive as I thought coming through here, but
It was quite risky.
oh, it was.
It was echoing a little bit down here, but
Oh, okay, okay. All right. Well, yeah, let's blast it. Okay.
I've been told not to.
There we go. Okay, you get the idea. Enough dancing from me. Let's explain what's going on here. Well, first of all, this Tetris is not your normal looking Tetris. The first thing you'll probably see is the fact that the game is split between two players, not in the way you'd think, with one player being down below and one player being up there. If we get the game going, we can talk about what's going on the sides here. We have controls for player 1 and player 2, both there, as well as a few other details we'll get into. Some general controls, some nice quality of life features, pausing, restart, mute, telling you stuff over here about what players were, where the music's playing, all good stuff, as well as the power-ups here, which will come into play in just a second. So whenever you clear a line in Tetris, whenever you get Tetris pieces all in one line, like what just happened there, a new power-up happens, which power-up is a bit of a well, it's misnomer. It's a bit of a yeah, exactly. It's more of a way to screw over the other player than anything else. So we saw a little bit of two of them there. One of them is a bit hard to spot because the first power-up we have is speeding up. The opponent's side, once you clear a line, the opponent's side will speed up their Tetris pieces falling. And once that cycles through, once you cleared one line, you move on to the next power-up that is shown here. So that's one here. You can go back slightly. The second, yeah, that's good. Right, you can see it here. Bizarre Tetramino, which is a fun word to say. So those vary between a U piece, which you just saw there, and a plus piece, which have proven to be quite an annoying addition to the game. And if we play it a little further, we can see one of the ease quality of life features. Pausing. We've settled on quite a sort of classic 80s style pause screen, showing also the that you can restart by pressing the R key. With a nice little animation as well. Always good. And if we let this play a little longer, we can see the third power-up, which is actually listed up here at player 2, which is to remove a block. Now, if you're any good at Tetris, you'll know that removing a block can be a very annoying little feature, which we can actually see right here. Player 2 is actually managed to remove that piece there, and considering the objective of the game is to clear a line, that's pretty annoying. So we'll let this play a little more and show off the fun feature of what happens when one player wins, which might take a bit, so I'm going to skip forward a bit. Oh, yeah, here we go. I kind of spoiled it a bit, but there we go. Nice explosion, which was
Big. That's Cameron here, Cameron M, Cameron B.
One of the learning objectives has just been.
Yes. Integral. We needed something like that. So yeah. Last thing is behind the scenes, which Michael will go into more detail with.
Yeah, so because we decided to build this solid structure, and because we had no idea how long anything would estimate, our ideas board ended up with having a million different ideas on it, and hopefully some of the team will be happy to start keep working this, keep on implementing this. We do have the game available online for everybody to sort of pull it up on their own laptop if they fancy it as well. But we wanted to do a little bit more, both in like quality of life features, as in having a drop shadow, so it's a little bit easier to see when that determinant is going to fall down, especially with something this fast-paced. The way this size of the board is designed right now is for minimum game length and maximum tension, just because we knew that we would have it up on demo, just down on the floor. We didn't want anybody just to sit there and wait 15 minutes for anything slightly interesting to happen. So the game is set up to be essentially twice as fast as regular Tetris is, and probably about 4 times as difficult. But this should be, the size of the board is completely dynamic. There shouldn't be an issue with the user just being able to type in the amount of rows they want, the amount of columns they want, and the board to be generated anyway as it comes. We're also thinking about implementing, for example, the small changes to power-up system, where you would have full control over when they would happen, for a little bit of extra element of strategy, as well as, I swear we had something else on the list down here. Sorry. I've got my cheat sheet down here, but I don't actually remember what was on there. So we had the size of the board, we had the, oh, there you go. Yeah, variable wall size, and also we really want to expand onto possibly making this mobile friendly in some way as well, with perhaps you don't often see these apps, but sometimes 2 people using the same phone with a split screen, just something to put on the train, up on the table, just 2 people swiping around on their own. But we unfortunately did not have time to explore different control schemes, to explore different platforms. I know it's like, it's entirely worthless now, but you know, we tried, we learned, we had explosions, and we had an incredible soundtrack, all by the work of Cameron and Andrea as well. I do believe that's it. I think we'll be happy to take a couple of questions.
Yeah,
Yes. I have a question. One of the things I found most impressive about watching you guys work and your progress is they're like 2 snapshots of like last week, seeing you all like come out of Zoom being like, oh, there's so much to do. How do we do this? And then around like Monday, Tuesday last week, you went through that kind of like, how on earth is this possible to me? And I'm like, oh, great. It's basically what I want to do. It seemed like a distinctive shift, and I wonder if you have any insights on like what got you from A to B.
We don't have insights. It snuck up on us as much as it snuck up on you. But we essentially, like when I showed these screenshots earlier, if I go back to the presentation, going from, I actually know how to make a full slideshow, so let's deal with this. Not very good at PowerPoint, but yeah, so going from this to this, sorry, just to a board that actually moves, that was probably about 2 or 3 days of work. Then going from this to this probably took us about 5 hours. So because building the core functionality, for the biggest challenge for us at the beginning was understanding how these pieces move, because it's all coordinate based, and actually trying to understand like these positions. It was most of the code logic in this is add 1, subtract 1, or add 2, maybe subtract 1, and that's how it all moves around. And that was the most daunting part of it. Once that sort of slotted itself into place, everything else just fell in and just started working. So we did kind of, thank you, do my job for me. But yes, we did essentially go from this to a final project, to what you've seen in here, and essentially what felt like a couple of hours as well.
Can I jump in on that one?
Please do.
We had an MVP that was by necessity not very small, and that felt like it dragged on forever because we were over our deadline. Was it Friday?
We were 2 days over the deadline.
Yeah, because their core aspects, like having a game two-player. So it felt like the MVP took forever, and then everything else was just because the MVP was so large, everything else took its
It was difficult for us to imagine how long would it take because we had an idea of, well, cool, you just add one, right? Yeah. That turned out to be a method that was about 150 lines long to add one. But none of us had experience working with something like this heavy in functionality and algorithms. It was difficult for us to estimate the timings beginning.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Tetris Warrior Gaming Units Universe Heroes. Okay, so thank you very much to our wonderful 3 teams so far. Next, we'll move on to our 4th. So I would love to introduce Gig Guru.
Hello, we are the team behind Gig Guru. I am Barney. We've got Julian, Alice, Charlie, and Orly. And in case you needed it, here's some photos of us. Just you can compare. We are who we say we are. Gig Guru is an event suggestion app. You can put in your own city or a city you're going to, and say that you're interested in going to music events. Super cool stuff. I think someone else is next. I don't remember who.
That's me. So just a bit about our planning. In the top corner, you can see our Excalibur. This is where we kind of planned our minimum viable product, so our MVP. We had quite a lot of ideas flying about that we wanted to include. So this bit was kind of a bit of a hard part for us to say what we had to kind of narrow it down to. But we found this really useful to keep referring back to throughout the week, so we knew what it would look like. We had a kind of shared vision, and that really helped motivate us as well. And the kind of like little tags as well really helped us think about the information that we might need to get from our API, which then kind of cut out a bit of the thinking down the line. And then we did also have sections for like future sprints and like ideal features that we'd like to add on. We also used Trello, which is this corner. We color coordinated things, so it looked pretty, but also we kind of could clearly see at first glance like kind of things that we would be picking up. So that's kind of revisiting the ticket idea. So there were like ones for testing, that kind of thing, and we could also tag each other to it, and so we could at a first glance see who is working on what, and that helped us stay organized as a team.
So for our project, we used technologies such as MERNstack. We did have experience using this through previous projects such as Acebook, but only this time for this particular project, we had opportunity to use the MERNstack and basically set up the project from scratch, which we found extremely challenging, but it was an interesting starting point for us. In terms of testing our product, we have a high testing coverage for the back end, which we're very proud of. Tim, well done. We used the Ticketmaster Discovery and Google Maps API, which we found really fascinating. Although we, as I said, we have a really good covering test coverage for the back end. Our front end, however, the testing isn't so great, as we found it extremely challenging because we had to mock the information and it had to obviously return as well. So it was quite difficult, but yeah, we got through it. I have to say the project gave us a really good opportunity to be exposed to React, which was something we obviously started working with. And yeah, I think the team would agree that it was really fun. It was difficult, but it was extremely fun. Right, guys? Yeah.
Okay, I'm here to talk about how we worked as a team. So throughout the project, it was really important that we kept organised. From the beginning, it was established that every morning we would have a stand-up about 10 a.m. And it was a time for catch-up coffee and planning up the day ahead of us. So during that planning time, we used Trello, as Alex mentioned, and it meant that no two people were working on the same section of the project at any one time. And I will not lie to you, that Trello board, as pretty as it was, got incredibly messy. And luckily, we had someone, even though they were completely unwilling to at most times, to clear it up for us. So yeah, it was very important for us to stay organized. We also needed to know the code base, all of us. So we do pull requests and merges all at the same time as a team. And as scary as it was, we had our GitHub Pro over there who ran off earlier, but he is back now. And he was able to get through even the most spaghettified of code. And then this time was usually done during a stand-up at the end of the day, or it was at the next morning, and it was never allowed to get to more than 4 pull requests at any one time. And then finally we had our retros, which were done throughout the 2 weeks. And they were a time for reflection, grievances, and a little bit of humour. And it was a place for to wind down after sprints and talk about how we shouldn't make 5,000 API recalls in one single afternoon, or pushing our API key to GitHub. But I will move you on to Julian, who will go through the tech demo.
Cool. All right. Let's hope this works. Okay, cool. So when you access the website, it will take you straight to the sign up page. Here we go. So signing in as Starman. My typing is really slow, sort of regret that. But for the purpose of today, I will be David. When you sign up, your information goes straight into a database and your password is encrypted. So if we get hacked, all that info is safe. I also want to go back and show that we do have validation here, so you can't sign up using empty inputs and other weird hacker stuff. Here we go. So this is for a valid email. Again, really slow typing. Valid user, valid passwords. Okay, now we're gonna finally log in. Validation here as well, just to really rub it in.
Did you do the validation? I think you might have done it.
Okay, and once you've logged in, retrieves your data from the database. Here, this is the core of the app. We have components here, so there's nav bar. This is the search function component that we'll go into later. And then we have our data from the external API. If we load it in, as soon as you enter the page, you can load more, and it will lengthen up to 50 total results. So what happens next? It's set to a default of London, and you can view more info on each individual event. And then this is the Google Maps API. So it'll tell you some info about the event, the Choir of Man, very interesting. And then we go into maps here. You can see exactly where it is if you know London really well. And then you can even go on Street View. But unfortunately, my aim is dreadful. So I kind of, it's a random restaurant. But we're working on that. You go back to the main page. We have a few more functionalities, so you can also say you're interested in events. This will essentially save them for later. When you add them, they get added to your database, so they get taken from the API to the database, and then you can go to your account page, and this loads it from the database. So you're not doing a second API call. And then this is just a demo of how you can go back to the feed, add some more, and then they'll all list up. All right. This is, we have, so yes, London was the default. You can also enter other cities. Liverpool, Leeds. I had L in my mind. I couldn't think of any others, so I just went straight to shuffle. Okay, yeah, so the shuffle button. Not sure how applicable this is, like when you would use it, but it's fun and it's there and it's very fast. I really like that. And then we log out, takes to the login page. Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess the obvious question is, what would you like to add?
We did quite
It's a big list.
Yeah.
What's top of it?
I think our initial project was we all came together with the idea of doing a sort of Tinder-like finding people to go to events with.
There were two Tinder things.
We kind of then peeled it back from that to being able to get the events from the list. So I suppose one of the next things would be to have accounts that have the same added events. Maybe you can go through those and say, oh, you know, I'm interested, like a social aspect, I'm interested in going to that event with this person. That might be sort of one of the top of the pile kind of items.
I think another one as well was the Spotify kind of API integration. We were already dealing with two, but we kind of thought that would be quite cool because you can then like filter by genre. You could save your preferences, but also like on that info page, we thought it'd be quite fun to be able to like play their top sample songs, so you can see what kind of vibe you're going for. But we quickly established that two APIs were quite a handful enough, so maybe next time.
Thank you so much. If you do have any more burning questions for these teams, there'll be plenty of time afterwards. So come and grab them outside during the networking session. I'm sure they'll be pleased to tell you a little bit more about their projects. Okay, thank you so much, Gig Guru. And now, definitely, that was like a spoiler almost. Last but not least, I would love to welcome Team Excuse up to present.
Thank you, DJ Daddy Longlegs, for that dance intro. We are Excuse. We are Jack, George, Charmaine, Will, and Mergen. Together, we are Excuse. I thought it'd be fitting to get ChatGPT to explain the app because it's basically the whole point of what's happening here. So we gave it all our notes and we asked it to do a nice little summary for everyone. So introducing our innovative app, Excuse. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you need a clever excuse to gracefully bow out an event? Look no further. Excuse is here to save the day. With the power of OpenAI API, our app generates hilarious and quirky excuses tailored to your specific event. But that's not all. We've taken it a step further by incorporating real-time data from NASA's EONet API. So if you're feeling extra creative, Excuse can even weave in a natural event to make your excuse truly unforgettable. Whether you need an excuse for a last-minute cancellation or a playful exit strategy, Excuse has got you covered. Say goodbye to awkward moments and hello to ingenious excuses with Excuse. Thanks to ChatGPT, the 6th member of our group, for putting that together. So we're going to go straight into a demo of the application. I know quite a few people had a chance to have a look at it outside at the fair, but so we start up with just the splash screen designed by Mergen. So as the app bundles in, this is a mobile application built with React Native. So the first screen you have the box where you can enter what event you're trying to get out of. You have the toggle for the EONet API, which we'll get to later in the demo, and then the generate excuse button, which is the kind of the core functionality. So if we press generate excuse, you see the state changes to submitting and has a little animation moving. And this just pulls in a kind of standard excuse generated by OpenAI. So I can't make it because I pet unicorns had a last minute spot in a synchronized swimming competition and I'm a coach. Very believable, very possible. So from there, you can obviously have a share and copy functionality there. So that copies to clipboard when it's pressed. So you can copy that straight over. But of course, you can add in your own event details. So obviously, we needed a reason to get out of doing Maker's Demo Day. Clearly, they didn't believe it because we're here. But so we can generate that. And that will then send another request to the AI, and it will incorporate that within it. So I can't make a Maker's Demo Day because I've just discovered I have a rare medical condition called persistent disco fever. I'm pretty sure George has it. Every time I'm in a gathering of people, I start uncontrollably dancing to the music in my head, etc., etc. So it manages to incorporate that within it. We also have the EONet functionality, which Charmaine will talk in a bit more detail later. But essentially, it's a toggle we can turn on that will pull in from NASA the most recent natural event that's happening in the world and incorporate that within the excuse as well. So we put in Maker's Demo Day and we turn the toggle on. We're then able to generate another excuse and kind of build out our excuse even further. And from here, now we're saying we can't make it to Maker's Demo Day because we've been selected as an official tropical storm Calvin chaser, been hired by the Weather Channel to document this rare and unique tropical storm up close and personal. So again, entirely believable, frankly. And then from there, we also have the share functionality. So this will allow you to share it to third-party applications as well. So that could be anything from WhatsApp to Slack. We decided to Slack it to Maker's very own. Hafsa, just to give her a real fright that we weren't going to turn up today. She didn't read it, so thanks, Hafsa. Ruined the bit there. So yeah, now I'm going to hand you over to Charmaine, who's going to talk a little bit more about the tech involved and how we did it.
Cool, thank you, Jack. So you're probably wondering how we built this. One language to rule them all, JavaScript. So we've got Node in the backend and React Native in the front end. React Native allows you to build mobile apps, one code base for Android, iOS, and we also have web enabled. One of our challenges was actually getting it to look nice on the mobile app and on web. So styling it on one would kind of break the other. We decided to focus on mobile, but it is functional on web as well. We use a tool called Expo, which is really cool. There's an app that you can download on your phone, and you scan a QR code, and then as you're coding, it live refreshes your app on your phone, which is pretty cool. And then we use two APIs. So we've got ChatGPT's OpenAI API that actually generates the prompt for us. So Will explain that in a second. And then we've got the NASA EONet API. So basically, this pulls in data from the latest natural events. We also did some testing, so everything is fully covered with Jest. One of our challenges with that was mocking the APIs because we've got two of them. And that was quite painful because we had to get the structure correctly, but we got it working in the end. Another thing that we tried was doing end-to-end testing for the app fully. We tried to look into a tool called Detox, but that was really painful. I asked my friend Laura, who's actually a Makers alumni, and she's a React Native dev. I was like, Laura, how do you do end-to-end testing with React Native? And she was like, I propose you pray to your gods. So we were like, okay, fair enough, not doing that. But to be fair, with Jest, our coverage is at 97%, which quick maths is basically 100, so we're good. So yeah, I will now pass it on to Will.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk a bit about the OpenAI API, which is sort of the unsung hero of our application. So for those of you that don't know, OpenAI is the company that developed and supports ChatGPT and DALL-E and several other language model AIs. And our app uses GPT 3.5 Turbo, which has now been replaced with, I can't remember the 4.0, just 4? 4. Okay. We're using 3.5, and it essentially sends a prompt that we refined asking for an excuse, and then it adds additional instructions based on whether or not you've hit the toggle or if you've input anything into the input field for the event description. And I mean, our main takeaway was that it was just really cool to work and exciting to work with this API and with generative AI. Like we had loads of ideas when we were coming up with our prompts, loads of things we could add, and just the power of it is really incredible. Jack found a really amazing quote from the CEO of OpenAI who's I'm paraphrasing, but he basically was saying that artificial general intelligence, which is what they're working towards, will elevate humanity, increase abundance, aid scientific discovery, and change the limits of the possibility. So of course, the first thing we did was make an app that generates an excuse for you when you when you need one. But I do think, I mean, personally, that we tick all those boxes. But But yeah, no, I just the main takeaway from working with this was it's really exciting. Like we have, yeah, it's just really exciting and inspiring. Yeah, I'm gonna hand it off now to George, who's gonna talk about how he works as a team.
Okay, I'm George. I'm an emotional person, so I'm going to talk about the emotional stuff. Okay. All right. The main impetus was to create a single purpose application that did its job well. And when I say well, I mean extremely well. All right. We prioritize learning over anything else. And like a couple of examples of this where we did our pull requests together just to make sure we were all on the same page and we understood each other's code. And we also paired based on our weaknesses. So in the aim of making our weaknesses stronger, believe it or not. We worked with a new technology, React Native, and we embraced it wholeheartedly. And it made sense to use React Native due to the nature of our app. You know, it's a single page thing. And like, to be completely honest, we absolutely nailed it. Like, just to be honest, you know, I'm being honest. You know, like the agile MVP sprint process, we just had it down. We just had it down. And at the end of each sprint, we had a presentable product, and that was something that was really key and really special because we'd reach the end of a sprint. And we'd be like, right, we could present this. And what it did was alleviate all the pressure of just, I don't know, an accumulative project. You know, we just, yeah, that bit was just great. Just like the sort of not feeling that weight of like, well, we just finished this sprint and now we need to go on to this sprint because we've got nothing, because something's half done. Every day we had fun and we improved as developers. And like, that is all you can really ask for in a engineering project, like hands down. All right. On a final note, well, it's sort of a final note. There is a final note, but I'll go on to the final note after the final note. Okay. We are clearly the best makers cohort in history. Right. Yeah. And like this is genuinely been one of like the best experiences of my life. And I feel and I really do. I feel like you're all family. It really runs deep. You know, and I've got 2 rounds of applauses, please. So do them, right? Okay. Can I have a round of applause for my sensational teammates who have been there for me and just done this? And finally, the final note squared, make as much noise as you can, and I mean as much noise as you can. Stamp your feet, clap your hands, don't hold back. Come on, let's give it, you know? You know? Like, for all the beautiful people in this room and our beautiful cohort.
Yeah, that's it. That's the end.
Yeah.
Do you have one question for this lovely team? Yes.
I'm wondering about how you work with the API. Are the prompts that you put in just exactly the same as you would when you're using ChatGPT? Or does it have like here's the prompt, here's the things you can tweak?
It's slightly different.
Talking to the mic.
Oh yeah, sure. It's slightly different. So there's different types of prompts you can send. There's the system prompt, which is sort of a description of like what you want it to do. So for example, ours is you're an excuse generator. Your aim is to generate funny, outlandish, and etc. excuses. And then there's a different sort of role, which is the user role, which is more what the user actually types in. So for example, each of our toggle and our input field is a user input. And then in the system prompt, we tell ChatGPT what to expect from those inputs, basically. There's a bit more to it, which I honestly don't understand. But the API documentation is like super easy to use and really interesting, and gives you a lot of tips on like how to talk to an AI to get what you want from it.
It's got an official Node and Python library, OpenAI, so like it was super easy to integrate.
Yeah, it's really worth taking a look at, because it's just exciting. I don't know, I get a little thrill when I think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he was like this when we started the group. It's not new.
Yeah. I've actually gotten better, to be honest.
Yeah. Thank you.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much to our amazing 5 teams. That's it for our 5 incredible presentations this evening. All of you, to the whole cohort, you've done an immense amount of work, not just over the last 2 weeks, but 16 and even long before that, when you first kind of started embarking on this journey. And I think when you're in this intensive environment, week after week, what can often happen is I don't think you quite realize the things that you have done and the things that you've achieved. I hope that you do take a moment to think about that and actually acknowledge that next week when you're starting your next phase of the journey with the careers team. But yeah, this work is genuinely incredible. So you should be super, super proud of yourselves. You're amazing. And yeah, that's it. Been amazing to work with. I'll see you next week. Please come back in, the alumni in the office. And next, so we have maybe about an hour of networking before we close the office. So there's some food outside, there's some drinks outside, mingle, enjoy April, celebrate, get some rest over the weekend. You probably need it after everything over the last few months. And yeah, especially before you meet Katarina on Monday, because it's just going to start again then. So rest this weekend. And I know you're going to do amazing things. So I'm so excited to see it. And thank you everybody for coming as well. If you want to chat to any of these devs, please do. If you want to chat to any of the makers people you see in the makers t-shirts, please do as well. We're happy to have a chat. And yeah, well done again to the April cohort, and thank you.